In the last section, we successfully animated our posts in our forum. In this section, we'll add pagination. And pagination just means we'll organize the posts in our forum to have pages. And this is really because we don't want one gigantic single page that has hundreds of posts. And we'll use a helper library for this called ReactJS pagination. And so you don't have to look at a loading screen. I already installed this library. And to install it, you just do npm install and then ReactJS pagination. And it's exactly how it's spelled right here with the dashes. So let's go to our render method and then declare this pagination object we just imported. And we'll need 5 attributes to make pagination work. We need active page, which is going to be just the page the user is on. And our active page is going to be handled by React in the local component state. So as a value, we pass in this.state.activePage. Remember, .activePage is going to be a property of local state. Then we have items count per page, which is 5. So we'll just have 5 posts per page. And then total items count, so this is going to be the total number of posts, and we'll leave this blank for now. And page range displayed, so it's going to be how many pages we have total. And we'll also leave this one blank for now. And finally we have onChange, which is the function that's called when a user changes the page. And we will of course set this up later on in this section. So let's declare the local state properties we're going to use to make pagination happen. So the first one we're going to need is numPosts, and this is going to be the number of posts. And then we have page range, which is we're just going to initialize it to 0, but of course we will calculate this out. And then active page, we'll just set it to 1. We want 5 posts per page, and then we also have the post slice. So the post slice is going to be an array that contains the posts that should be displayed on a certain page. And the first thing we'll do is set the number of posts. And we can do this in the add post to state function. Since we are getting all the posts here, this is the ideal place to set the length and the number of posts. So we go on the next line and then we do set state and then numPosts, and then we set it to this.state.post.length. And remember, our previous post call set the post to local state, which is why we can call the length function on it here. And then the second property, page range, we do this.state.numPosts/5, because remember, we need 5 posts per page. So we just do the total number of posts/5, which is how many pages we need. And next we have our slice post function. So I'll just set it up first and then I'll explain it afterwards. So we have const index of last post, and this is going to be this.state.activePage times this.state.post per page. And then next we have const index of first post, which is just index of last post minus this.state.post per page. And then we do this.setState and then post slice, which is going to be an array. It's actually going to be a slice of our main post array. And the index will be, of course, index of first post and index of last post. And if you're not sure, slice just means we're taking a portion of the array. And slice is just a given JavaScript function. It essentially takes a portion of an array and gives you a new array from that portion. And it takes 2 parameters. It takes the index where you want to start the new portion of the array, and the last one where you want to end that new portion of the array. So I think this kind of gives you a glimpse into how we're doing pagination. We have our entire post array, and then we slice a certain portion that will be displayed with a certain page. So basically what we're doing is we're first setting the active page number, then we call slice post to use the active page number and the posts per page to index, and then slice all of our posts. So since there's 5 posts per page, the last index on the page will be 4 if we start counting at 0. And the 5th index is actually the 6th post, but we don't have to subtract 1 from our index of last post variable to get the index of the last post, since slice does this for us automatically. It excludes the last index. So basically, here's an example. So the index of the last post on page 4 will be 20. So 20 will be the index, but it's going to be the 21st post, since again, we start counting at 0. But again, we don't have to compensate for the fact that we started counting at 0, because the slice method automatically excludes the last index. So we're correctly showing 5 posts per page in the correct order. And then for index of first post, index of last post for page 4 will be 20. So 20 minus posts per page, which is 5, which is index of 15. So the index of 15 is actually, remember, the 16th post since we started counting at 0. And since we're on page 4, we should be seeing the 16th post at the top. So this is essentially how we do pagination and how it works with indexing. So we're just taking a small slice of the entire post array and then just showing that to the user based on the active page number. And again, whenever a user changes the page, this post slice array is updated automatically. And even if a user jumps many pages at once, this function will still work. For example, if they jump from page 1 to page 3, this function will still be valid and they will be seeing the correct posts. And even if they do something like jump from the very first page to the very last page, they'll still be seeing the correct post. And then after that, we have our animate post function, and this will animate each post individually. So in our last section, we animated all the posts at once. And in this function, we'll do each animation separately. So let's first start with the this.setState and then post motion, which we'll set as an empty array. And again, this is because every time a user changes a page, we want to empty out our post motion array. And how it's basically going to work is the post slice array we just set up, we're going to call a map function on it. And then we're going to take each post in the post slice array and then add it to this post motion array. Then as a post is added to the post motion array, it is animated. So whenever a post is essentially set in the post motion array, it becomes animated. So after our set state function, let's do let I equals 1, and this will keep track of the counter. And then we do this.state.postMotion.postSlice.map, and then post arrow function, and then we do a set timeout because we want each of them to be animated separately. And then we do an arrow function, this.setState post motion, and then we do a spread operator and comma post. And the order is important. We don't do post first and then run the spread operator. And again, the spread operator ensures we have a flat array. We don't want two-dimensional arrays within an array. And then we can just pass in 400 milliseconds as the second argument. And then after this, we need to iterate our counter. So we do I++. And then after this, we need our handle page change function. And this takes page number as a parameter. And page number is a reserved word. This is essentially how we communicate with our pagination element to make sure we're getting the right page number. And then we just set the state of active page to the page number. And whenever a page changes, we want to also call the this.slicePost and animatePost functions. And we have to put them in a timeout because even though it's a very small time, it does take some time to add the post to local state and make the required calculations. So I found 50 milliseconds and 100 milliseconds to be the minimum time needed. So let's now go back to our render method and then finish off the pagination attributes. So for total item counts, it's going to be this.state.numPost, and page range display is going to be this.state.pageRange. And on change, we can just pass in a reference to the handle page change function. And remember, we're not calling this function here, we're just passing a reference to them. So we don't need the parentheses or an arrow function. So let's just now put some finishing touches on our app. So the first thing, in the add post to state function, we need to call this.slicePost and this.animatePost. This is going to be the very first time a user visits the page. So we'll need to do this for page 1 basically. And these functions are going to be called whenever a user then subsequently changes the page. Then in our animatePost function, we want to multiply 400 milliseconds times I. And again, this is what will give us sort of a animation that the posts are transitioning in one at a time instead of all at once. And again, this is because, remember, we're running the map on the post slice. So each post has its own set timeout function, which means that the first post is delayed by 400 milliseconds. And since I is 1 on the first post, and then at the end of the first post, we do I++, which iterates I. So on the second post, I is now 2. So 400 times 2 is 800 milliseconds. So that's essentially how we're doing it. It's the first post is 400 milliseconds. The second is 8. The third will be 12. And the fourth, 16 and 100 and so on. And again, this will give us a transition of the posts coming in one by one. And then in our render method, we now want postMotion.map. We don't want just the regular posts. And in our animate post function, let's just also add a curly brackets in our map function call. And this is because I++ is considered a separate function. So since we have two function calls, the set timeout in I++, we have to wrap them both with curly brackets. And this is it. We can now test our app. So let's go to our forum, and yes, perfect. Our posts are coming in one at a time as we wanted. And if we go to the second page, yes, it is working as well. Perfect. So this is good, but not good enough. Our posts are coming in, but they're not transitioning in, meaning they're not fading in as we saw in the previous section. They're just appearing, and this doesn't look as nice. So what we're going to do, we're going to make each post transition in the next section.